Okay, so good evening everyone. Welcome to the Yiboneh Beit Midrash. Welcome home to Torah. We are in Parshat V'era, and we're in the book of Exodus, chapter 7, and we're going to start on verse 9. So let me give you a little bit of a preliminary, for those who are joining us for the first time, if there are, that we use the Kliyakar, a great Perush, as the outline for tonight's discussion. He has insights that are usually fundamental, meaning however he discusses these ideas, which first of all he helps us understand the actual Hebrew. He was an expert in Hebrew, and he noticed things that all the Meforshim through the ages have noticed and spoke about, but never explained it in such fine detail, so that we, us laymen, can really understand what are the anomalies, what are the problems in the Hebrew. When we're not doing Bible criticism as saying, prove to us. We're doing Bible criticism in a sense of, teach us, why is this an anomaly? Why is this something awkward? How is this sentence structured in a way that God is trying to convey a message to us? Okay, because we believe that every letter and every word is direct communication from Hashem, and there's no mistakes. Every letter and every word has a message. Okay, so once we get that clear, we're all on the same page, the Kliyakar will then begin to explain certain things. So let me give you a little bit of a introduction. In chapter 7, verse 9, okay, when Pharaoh speaks to you saying, this is what God is saying to Moshe, and he says, Moshe then says to Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you to provide a sign for yourselves, then you're going to what? You're going to say to Aaron, take your staff, cast it before Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent. Okay, so we're going to not use the English word serpent, okay, as much as we can. Because the Hebrew word is a tanin, and a tanin is not a nachash, or maybe it is, but it's a different word. Now if you go back to chapter 4, verse 3, where Moses is at the burning bush, and Moses says, how are the people going to believe me? So he says, I'll give you a sign. You'll throw your mateh. What's the mateh? The staff. And you're going to throw it on the ground, and it's going to become a serpent. And it did, and it became a serpent. So what's the Hebrew over there? It says, Vihi lenachash. Now go back to our chapter, right? In chapter 7, and it says, Yehi letanin. Hello, it's different Hebrew. Yet in the English, a lot of them are translating the exact same way. So one thing the Kliyakar is going to do is explain on a very simple level, I'm really kidding, the difference between these two words and very deep concepts, fundamental concepts in Judaism that every Jew should know and live with. So let's begin. The first thing the Kliyakar points out is in chapter 7, verse 9. Kan ne'emar, here it says, Sheyikach mate Aharon yehi letanin. Right? Exactly like we said, take your staff, cast it before Pharaoh, and it will become a tanin. Now, like I said, I'm not going to use the word serpent. It could be a fish, it could be a snake, it could be a crocodile. Okay, but we will discover that whatever it is, it's not a regular snake. A regular snake is maybe venomous, maybe not venomous, but the tanin is going to be extremely more dangerous, more, let's say, stronger and capable of more destruction than a regular snake. That's all the background I'm going to give you, and we'll discover why. Right away, the Kliyakar points out, earlier on in Parshat Shemot, meaning in chapter 4, verse 3, Tziva sheyikach Moshe mate shalom. Now, in chapter 7, verse 9, it's Aaron's mate. It's the staff that Aaron has. But in chapter 4, chapter 4, verse 3, it's Moses' staff that turns into a nachash. Nachash is for sure a serpent or a snake. There are going to be different opinions about what exactly is going on here. Some say that the tanin is what? A dag gadol. Like Rashi explains, go to chapter 1 in Genesis, chapter 1 verse 21, when God created on the 5th day the creatures in the sea. Look what it says. God created the great sea monsters. Again, stay away from the English translations. What is the word Hebrew? Hataninim hagadolim. These great taninim. Again, we don't know what they are. But if you know anything about the 5th day, most likely they're fish. And look at Rashi on that. You can just turn to page 2 on the source sheet. Rashi says, Dagim gedolim shebiyam. Large fish that are in the sea. Now this is a very interesting Agadita, because in terms of the Agadita, this is referring to the Leviathan and its mate. Okay, meaning there was a male and a female. God created the male and female, like He created all the animals except for man, by the way. Man is the only creature that God did not create male and female. He only created it. Okay, we won't go in there now because this is you have to go to Parshat Bereshit for that. But what did God do? He slaughtered. He, let's say, wiped out. He took out the female from the general population, and He salted it. That's why the Jews eat herring on Shabbos morning as a reminder. Me'ein olam haba, right? It's a. I'm kidding, but maybe a hope. Because that's what we are. We're looking forward to the Messianic age. We're looking for, right? Shabbos is a little bit of the future, right? It's a taste of Olam Haba. So it says that God, He slew the female and salted her away for the righteous in the future. And so because if they were left to procreate, they would take over the world. Somebody told me maybe this had to do with dinosaurs. Who knows? Okay, put that all aside. This is, we're talking about the idea of a taninim are fish, okay? Yeshomrim, but some say the tanin here we're dealing with is a nachash. And so too, Rashi also explains, right, that's what we're talking about. But the Kliyakar feels now's the place to discuss the difference in that two languages. Why over there Nachash, by Moshe throwing down his staff, and over here it is Aaron's staff, and it's turning into a tanin, at least in front of Pharaoh. Okay. Ki hatanin hu nachash gadol, mesukan bioter. There's no doubt, whatever the tanin is, it is at least a large serpent. It has to be something larger and more dangerous. And he brings a proof text in Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 33. This is in Hazinu, where it's talking about serpents and cobras, ruthless cobras. Hamat taninim yenam. Whatever these are, these taninim, their wine is, he translates bitterness, but I think it means venomous. It means, wrath and poison, as well as rosh patanim achras, very ruthless and cruel. Okay, you look at Rashi. He just mentions about how a cobra is ruthless. Okay, let's go on. So basically, we're also talking about Dan. So look at number 6 on the source sheet in chapter 49 of Genesis, verse 17. Right? Dan will be a serpent on the road, a viper on the path, which bites the horse's heels so its rider falls backwards. Yidan nachash ale derech, shefifon ale orach, hanoishech ikve sus, v'yipul rechovo echor. Okay, I jumped the gun a little bit because this is a very important lesson that he wants to get across to us. That both Moshe and Aaron, all of their miracles, right? It seemed to have happened through the staff. Do not fall for that. It's not a magic wand. They pronounced words. They said words every time a miracle occurred. the staff was just there. This is a big mistake. I think people in today's world, they think there's magic in this and in that. No, even when God gave us our soul, in the Aramaic, it's interesting, Onkelos calls, when God put into us a living soul, meaning he put into us his breath, he breathed into us a living soul. The Hebrew is a speaking soul, the fact that it speaks. Okay, so when we speak, this is a part of God. We're actually in touch with God. Think about it. Think about the way you speak from now on a lot more. We're talking about actual service to God, is to think before you open. How many traps do we have? How many guards do we have? Right? You have not only your tongue and your teeth and your lips, right? And you have, you have a lot of fences before you open your mouth. Nevertheless, what do we see? That both Moshe and Aaron also kolanisim bi'imrei pihem. It was through their speech. Kanachash. Where is the power of the serpent? Everyone knows it's in the bite. It's in the mouth, right? Where's the venom going to come out from? Somewhere within the mouth, right? So this is going to be the symbolism. Why the staff turned into a nachash? Because the nachash is the ikar chocha b'fiv. The prime source of its power is in its mouth. U'kafi hanira sharov hanisim nasu ayidei matosam shel Moshe v'Aaron. Since the appearance only is that it's through the staff of Aaron, Moshe and Aaron, that created all of these miracles. But you know what? It's making sure, this whole idea of God making sure that this staff turns into a nachash, to get this across, that it's all about the power of the mouth, so that a person like Pharaoh, right? Who's the Baldin? Pharaoh, that there's no opening, there's no ability to make a claim. So that even he who's a fool could not say it was the magic wand. For him to make this mistake to say, oh, it all happened through magic, kishuf, or through their magic wand or the staff. That's exactly the reason why God made sure that these staffs turned into these serpents. Because just like the bite, the way that a serpent does, he bites, right, without any magic in the mouth. This is just the way it works. Everyone knows you get bit by a snake, you better hope it didn't have venom, otherwise you're on your way to the hospital or to the caretaker. Kach Moshe v'Aaron kocham b'fihem. So too, that's where the power of Moshe and Aaron was in their mouth. V'amatos pa'ulu koloson ha'pu'ulos v'koach imrei pihem shalem. It was the matos that affected all of the miracles, all the actions. That really was what? It was not the matos, but it was their mouth. It was b'koach imrei. Any effect that the mata had was only because of the mouth and not because of this dry stick. Ki tzaddik gozer oimer v'yakum lo. This is a very important thing. When a tzaddik opens his mouth and commands a blessing, that's why people go to big tzaddikim. They want to get a blessing from a big rabbi, from a big sage, from someone who's very righteous, because whatever he says will come to be. Now let me ask you, I want to digress a little bit. What do we say about Moses' sin, why he was not able to come into the land of Israel? Right? Because he hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. What would speaking to the rock help? Well, I'll give you one. I'm sure there's a lot of answers to that, right? It's not just the speaking to the rock. Ready for this? It was that he even asked God. He hesitated. What should I do? Oh, I'll ask God. God said, speak to the rock. He should have spoken to the rock without asking Hashem. He knew the people needed water, and all he had to do was speak to the rock. All he had to do was say, rock, give forth water. That's the power of a tzaddik. He can make a decree, and it will happen. Just like the sun stood still. It didn't just happen for Gideon. It did happen for Moshe at the end of his life. And that's why he thought, I finally on my own made the sun stand still, and that's why I think that I have the right to come into Eretz Israel. And that's when he asked then. It was only after the war. He thought he made a tikkun, but it wasn't good enough. The Al-Kei Nasu Matos Shneim L'Nachashim. That's why the matos of both Aaron and Moshe, they both became Nachashim, at least according to this opinion so far. Just like it says, now this is where we go to Genesis 49 verse 17, speaking about Dan will be a serpent on the road, as we mentioned, a viper on the path. This is going to hint Dafka specifically why it had to happen with Pharaoh. Why? Kach mata Moshe v'Aaron yun k'nechashim sorfim, that they became these fiery snakes, these fiery serpents, lahazik laparo ukol avadav, in order to cause damage to Pharaoh and his people and his servants. And we're going to see a hint very shortly. Moses fled. Okay, I'm really jumping the gun. Let me try to stick to the text. That by Dan, let's stick to the mention by Dan. The specific words are hanoishek ikvesus, that they're going to bite, right? You can imagine, like they say about elephants are scared of mice, right? So a horse would be scared of a snake. The snake can bite the hoof, the heel of the, right? The snake would bite the heel of the horse, and what's going to happen? Right? It's going to jump, whatever, and a wheelie, as they say, where I came from, and the rider's going to fall off. What does that sound like? The whole concept of riders and the horses falling in the splitting of the sea, and when the sea came back, the whole army, the whole Egyptian army was gone. So we'll see that shortly. And he goes on, V'teda v'tavin, you shall know and you shall understand. Ki Moshe haroa umanig l'Yisrael. Now, what was Moses? He was the leader to whom? For the Jewish people. The Mate Uzo, and his staff that's what the symbol of a leader and I'm going to use the roeh. He was a roeh, it's a shepherd. He was our shepherd. He was our leader. And they have staffs. And it was the staff of his strength. Yinhag haroeh es edro. That's exactly what a regular shepherd would do for his flock. He would have a staff. Hayasar u'Moshe gamal paro. So Moses happens to be, there's going to be a split, we're going to see the splitting of the personalities between Moshe and Aaron. Moshe was a ruler and a leader over the Jewish people, as well as over Pharaoh. Now where does it say that? I want you to just skip to number 12 in page 5. The Lord said to Moses, see, I've made you a lord over Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother will be your speaker. V'yomer Hashem el Moshe re'ei netaticha Elohim leparo. I'm going to make you master over Pharaoh. Look at Rashi. Elohim is a judge and a chastiser, to chastise him with plagues and torments. Whereas Aaron will be the speaker, like a Navi, like a Metargaman, like a speak. Okay, so in terms of who Moshe was, he was the leader and the master of us and Pharaoh, and Aaron was only a master over Pharaoh. He was not our leader. Now, how can we say that about Aaron? He was the interpreter. We just saw Rashi. The truth is, before Moshe came to be the leader, Aaron was the Gadol Ador. He was the greatest leader of the generation. And he gave it up in humility. When Moshe came back, and he actually greeted him out in the desert already, he did it with simcha. He was the older brother. And that, the Torah itself tells us, that he was happy that his younger brother had a higher position. And that takes a lot of humility. And we should all learn the lesson. Right? Let the best person do the job. Why fight over a job if you think that someone else can do the job better? I know we all need parnasa, we all need kavod, we all need no, we don't all need that. We need the job to get done, right? And we should be happy for the person and even support the people who are doing the job. Okay? So that was, Aaron was not the leader. He was the assistant. So what do we see here? Aval Aaron lo ya Moshe ki'im al paro v'amo levad. He was only the leader Aaron was only the leader over Pharaoh and the Egyptians. Al kein tziva Hashem shelifnei Yisrael yashlich Moshe mate shelo. It's very clear that when God commands Moshe in front of the Jewish people, right? Remember what he said on the mount? How are they going to believe me? He said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to throw your staff down. It's going to turn into a snake. And that's what happened with Moshe and Aaron. They gathered the leaders together, and they threw down. Who's they? Doesn't say they threw it down. Look at number 3 on the source sheet. It's chapter 4, verse 29 and 30. It does say Moses and Aaron went, and they assembled all the elders of the children of Israel. And it was Aaron who did the speaking. He spoke all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses. And it says, and he performed. Who's he? I can't hear you. Aaron. You think? He performed the signs before the eyes of the people. But wasn't it Moses that said, how are they going to believe me? Isn't it possible the word he here is Moshe? And because what did it turn into? It doesn't say. But we know that God said, you are going to take your staff and you're going to throw it in the ground and it's going to turn to a nachash. So what I'm going to tell you is what the Kliyakar is about to tell you. When it came to Moshe, his staff turned into a nachash. Because a nachash is less dangerous than a tanim. Now, it's going to be dangerous, but it's less dangerous. Because Moses is going to be the master over the Jewish people as well. And we need mercy. It needs to be toned down. When it comes to the Egyptians, Moshe, it's going to be Aaron, whose staff's going to turn into a tanim, which is more dangerous. Unbelievable. But Moses also has to give rebuke. So that's why it's a nachash. It has 2 roles. It's less dangerous than a tanim, but it has to have some aspect of mercy, meaning not as dangerous, or even as the Kliyakar will express, even Moshe has to be somewhat angry with us at times, but not that angry with us. He has to tone it down. That's what a leader needs to do. Cannot be walking around angry all the time with his people. It's to show mercy. So watch what he says. Al kein tziva Hashem shlifnei Yisrael yashlik Moshe mate shelo. When Moses in front of the people, it's his. He lenachash al derech leparo l'chol amo. But what that same staff, when it comes in front of Paro, it's going to act as a nachash. Okay. And that's when the second part of that verse we mentioned in Genesis 49:17, where at the end a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels, so its rider falls backwards. This hints lesus to the horses of Egypt and its riders, as we all know in Exodus chapter 14, verses 26 through 27, about the horse and its riders being thrown into the sea. Now what happened when Moses was told to throw the staff on the ground? The anas Moshe mipanav, that Moses fled from it. Why did Moses, what was frightening him? What freaked him out that he fled? Ki choshev sheleolam yamata shelo mashchis umchabel kenachash. Because imagine Moses thinking, oh my God, I have this tool, this vessel, this equipment called a staff, and I throw it to the ground, it turns into something very dangerous, a nachash. It's always going to be, I'm supposed to be a leader for who? The Jewish people? It's always going to be something very destructive? Ein zeh midas tova. So he thought, this is not a good trait. This is not a good sign. Akei nemar lo. That's exactly why God says to him, grab it by its tail. Listen to this. Where do we have that? This is it's in number 8. So it's Exodus 4, verse 4. So it says over there, and the Lord said to Moses, stretch forth your hand and take hold of its tail. Moses went ahead and stretched forth his hand and grasped it, and it became a staff in his hand. Remember what the staff represents? Right? Like the scepter does not depart from Shiloh until Mashiach comes, right? It won't depart from Yehuda until Shiloh comes. So this is also leadership, right? That's what the Mashiach is. He's our leader. He's our king. So it's about leadership. So what happens? And what's the tail? The tail is the tail end. It's always the end. So wait till you hear what fascinating concepts the Kli Yakar brings down. It's the tail. Grab it by the tail, not by the head. What's the head? Again, it represents the most dangerous part of the snake. Hainu makam rosh ha'peh. It's not just the head, it's where the mouth of the snake is. Mesukan lahazik ulahashchit b'soinei Hashem Yisbarach. What does the mouth, like Bilam, like think about Bilam, he also, why did Balak go after a guy like Bilam? Because he also had the gift of gab, right? You want to curse the Jews, you want to bless the Jews, you want to do something different to the Jews, you got to find someone who has power in the mouth to go and counter the people with power of the mouth. That's what the Jew has. That's what we're doing, sitting and learning Torah. I know most of you guys are just sitting there listening, but you go home and you'll discuss at your Shabbos table with your kids, whatever it is. It's using your mouth for Torah learning, right? So here we're talking about grab it by its tail, not its mouth. So something as destructive as that, I mentioned about Bilam, we're talking about the snake here. It's very dangerous. What about the tail? Zenavo behefech. But the tail is less dangerous, or not dangerous at all. Kisofo liyot ro Yisrael. In the end, Moses is going to be a very good leader. He is going to be the ro'eh, the shepherd of Israel. Lo yoro v'lo yashchis. And he will not cause us damage. It's not his fault. Any damage came to us not because of him. Kaznav shel nachash. Just like the tail of the snake. She'enu mazik el harehu kamate ba'alma. Once he grabbed it by the tail, it just became a regular staff again. It was no longer dangerous. Kach yekoach zeh shel nachash lamate bekapo. And that's exactly what it turned into, a mata in his hand, as if God was saying, Shehei nachash mazik lemitzrayim, that this nachash, remember what Moses originally thought? Oh my God, it turns into a snake, it's going to be very dangerous. It has no good character traits? No. That, you know what? This nachash, it's going to damage the Egyptians, umate oz lisrak echad, and simultaneously it's going to be a good thing for the Jews. Remember, even the rod, when God wants to send his rod against us, it may seem bad, but ultimately we know it's to correct us to do the right thing. So it's also merciful. Therefore, this rod that turns into a snake is going to affect the Egyptians, let's say negatively, where it's going to affect the Jews simultaneously for good. And even if you want to say, Shagam Yisrael, Yemate Nachash Kechad, that even for the Jewish people it had to affect in a negative way. Mata Oz L'Toivim V'Nachash Soif L'Roim. It was still within the Jewish people, acting as a positive leadership role staff for Moshe and a punishing rod for those who were evil. Now this is a very interesting concept. It's in Pirkei Avot, but it's not exactly the language he brings down. But it says, Nishichatan shel chachamim nashichat nachash. Did you understand? You never want to get on the bad side of the rabbis. That their bite, the bite of those sages, is like the bite of a snake. Now I want to go to Ethics of Our Fathers. You'll find this different numbers in different places, but this is Rabbi Eliezer. He would say, the honor of your fellows should be as precious to you as your own, right? Make sure to honor your chavrutot, your neighbors, your friends, and do not be easy to anger, right? Stay away from anger. Repent one day before your death, which means today, because you don't know when you're going to die. Now this is where it gets interesting. Warm yourself by the fire of the sages. And in Hebrew it says, V'have mitchamem keneged uran shel chachamim, by the light. Warm yourself by the light of the sages. V'havi zohir b'chalatan shelo tchaveh, and beware lest you be burned by its embers. Meaning they're hot coals, right? Young rabbis especially. Hot coals of the rabbis. Make sure you don't get burnt. For their bite is like the bite of a fox. Shanishachtan nishichat shu'al. And their sting is like the sting of a scorpion. It sounds like Muhammad Ali, right? Joking. V'ikvatan akitzat akrav. And here's the last part. Their hiss is the hiss of a serpent. L'chishatan l'chishat saraf. And all their words are like fiery coals. L'chale eish. So, where is this based on? Look in Ecclesiastes. This is number 10. Ecclesiastes 10 verse 8. One who digs a pit, right? If you dig a pit, which is like it's a mikshal, God forbid someone could fall in and get damaged, or even worse. One who digs a pit shall fall therein. You dig your own hole, they say, right? And one who breaks a fence, a snake shall bite him. Choifer gumatz bo yipo, uporetz geder yishkanu nachash. God forbid, right? Where do the snakes hang out? Okay, we're not talking about a chain link fence. We're talking about a wall of stones, and in the many holes, the snakes hang out. So if you break a fence, what is the fence? The fence is the siyag l'Torah, is the fences that the rabbis, every rabbinic ordinance that I've ever seen is always there to save us from sin, to create a sense of, distancing, right? Or reminders of the direction we should be going in, and not to go in the wrong directions. Always. Look at Rashi on that. Breaks a fence, the fence of the sages. To transgress their words, a snake shall bite him. Meaning what? Death by the hands of heaven. Do you know that, and sounds incredible, God says over and over again, right? Guard my guardings. What does that mean? That he wanted the sages to create fences, not adding to the Torah. It's creating a sense of intimacy and love relationship. When you love somebody, right, there can be fear. You walk into the room, right, you can have fear that you're going to wake up your wife, your husband, or there's a greater sense of love, where it's not a fear that you're going to wake them up, but you fear, it's called love. You love them so much, you don't want any harm to come to them. That's a higher level. And that's what the sages did. They love us, and they know that God loves us, and they want us to have that intimate relationship, so they created these siyagim, these fences. And since he spoke with an expression of breaking a fence, he mentions his recompense with an expression of the biting of a snake, which usually occupies the holes of broken walls of houses. Let's get back to the text. So the Clear Car ends this paragraph by saying, Asi gam kain shapir. This also works well, that I brought along Mashna Sanezel Lifnei Yisrael Dafka Mater Shal Moshe. He's now going to lead us into the idea that there's a Mater Shal Aaron, there's a staff of Aaron, there's a staff of Moshe, and up until now we've been dealing with the staff of Moshe. Okay, Aval Adayin Lo Ri'inu Shum Mofet. We haven't yet seen any proof. We haven't seen any miracles, perhaps. Let's use the word miracles. We haven't yet seen the miracles come along. Aaron Yerodeu Moshe B'Pharaoh V'Chol Amo. We mentioned that Aaron was going to be the master and ruler over Pharaoh and the Egyptians. Al Kain Tziva Hashem Lifnei Paro Lahashlik Mater Shel Aaron. Therefore, whose staff was it that was going to be used when the Nile, and I'm using that very loosely now, we're going to find it wasn't Aaron's staff that was used to strike the Nile. It was Aaron spoke, Aaron struck, but he used Moshe's staff on the Nile, and when it came to all the other water, there was swamps and canals and other river tributaries, that was struck with Aaron's staff. And that's going to be the difference between Nachash and Taninim. Watch what he says. When we speak about the Mata of Aaron, Vihila Tanin, it was Aaron's staff that turned into either crocodile or a more venomous type of serpent or a fish. We'll stick with the Tanim. Shchamato Gadol Me'amachat Stam Nachash. Whatever this Tanim is, it's more venomous or it's more dangerous, it's more deadly than a regular snake. And what do we learn from this? Did you know that Pharaoh himself is called a Tanin? Now we understand why when we're dealing with Pharaoh, the word Tanin is used. It's going to turn into this type of creature, this type of animal, as opposed to a fish or a snake, but something much more dangerous than either one of them. As it says, look in Ezekiel, chapter 29, verse 3. Now, everyone translate this as crocodile because it makes sense. But let's leave it in the Hebrew as tanim. And it's not just regular tanim, it's taninim, tanim with a mem at the end. The mem sof, right? You know what a final mem is? It's different than a final nun. But we've been using the word tanin with a nun and tanim with a mem. So here, look what the verse says in Ezekiel. Speak and you shall say. This was all about the rebuke that Ezekiel the prophet is giving to Egypt and Pharaoh. So says the Lord God, behold, am I upon you, O Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great crocodile. He lies down in the midst of the rivers. And you know what he says? He created the river. The river is my own. I made myself. This is the chutzpah. This is the arrogance. This is the idol worship, right? Of Pharaoh. In Hebrew, Pharaoh Melech Mitzrayim Tanoni Magado. Look at Rashi. The great crocodile. Since all the greatness of Egypt and all of its plenty comes from the Nile River, the prophet compares its king to a crocodile and its people to the fish of the river. The river is my own. I don't need any heavenly powers, for my river provides all my necessities. I made myself. With my might and my wisdom, I enhanced my greatness and my dominion. Why did God take us out of Egypt? Why did we have to go to Egypt to begin with, to develop as a nation? And where did God bring us? To Eretz Yisrael. You didn't need to pray for rain. You just dug a little bit of the canal and you made the water go into your fields. You had never had to rely on heaven. Here, God takes us to Eretz Yisrael and we're being blessed with so much rain. It's such a bracha. Okay, but we rely on something that needs to descend from heaven. Can you imagine living 6 months a year there's no rain, and only a few months of the year we only are relying on the heavens? But here, so in Egypt, it's so easy to fall, right? You can be in America and you fall into this idea that you don't have to, there's no spirituality, you don't need to do anything, you don't need to pray. You get a job, if not, you get welfare, if not, someone will take care of you. That was the verse we just read in Yecheskel. Now that we clearly understand that Pharaoh himself considered himself like a tanin, which we already expressed is either bigger or more dangerous than a simple serpent. This is exactly why Aaron's staff turned into a tanin. Keneged Paro Shinim Shulatanin. Exactly why it needed to go against, parallel to Pharaoh, who considered himself like a tanin. Kistam Nachash and Yochalo Kokach. Because just a regular serpent would not be able to go up against a tanin. Tanin Kocha Godo Min Nachash, as we already expressed many times, it was more powerful than a simple serpent. Alkein Herolo Tanin. This is exactly why it turned into a tanin. She Kocha Godo Mi Paro. That it should have more power than Pharaoh himself. Keep the Pharaoh tanin. Listen to what it says when it refers to Pharaoh. We just read it in Ezekiel. Hatanim with a final mem sofit. Hagadol. Okay? He expresses something that has nothing to do with grammar at all. This is purely Kabbalistic. Okay? This is in the mystical teachings. Chanoch, you hear this? The final mem has nothing to do with what I'm about to tell you in terms of grammar, but the final mem in Kabbalist is feminine. The mem, the sof, moira nekeva. Somehow it's referring to feminine, whereas a shekocha eno gadol bekoach tanin zachar. It's not going to have as much power as a masculine tanin with a final nun. That's why Aaron's was a nun, and Pharaoh was considered with a mem. Meaning, let's go through this. What he's about to tell us, it may not be politically correct, but it's true. And that is, the masculine is usually more stronger than the feminine. Now, I happen to think that's not really true. I don't think a man can carry for 9 months a baby. I don't think a man could ever survive the pain. And yet women do it time after time, right? After the first birth. And maybe that's Hashem's kindness and He causes them to forget some part of that pain. I don't know. But my wife and the women I know, my sisters, my mother, Strong. Women, I know, maybe they're stronger than men. When men get sick, that's it, the world finishes. Women, they still take care of everything that they were doing before, right? But let's just go with this, okay? So when it came to Pharaoh, it was with a feminine. And when it came to Aaron's staff, it was with a nun in the word tanin. Therefore, it's masculine, and it could overtake the other weaker part of, let's just say, as it is. Therefore, al kei nasa mate Aaron l'tanin ki hu yivla es paro shenim shel l'tanin nekeva. It actually swallowed up, right? It overtook and swallowed up the Paro himself. If Paro is compared to this his own rods, his own staffs, which are feminine. Kamosh Nemar, as we just read, if you want to find it, it's in Exodus chapter 7, verse 12. The Yibla Mate Aaron es Matosam. It actually says that Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. We're going to see something very amazing. He holds not like the Medrash. He says that it stayed naturally. Yanki Amru v'hartumim. You know what the astrologers of Pharaoh said? Kiesh gamlanu mateos. We also have a very strong staff, shanim shel tanim, which is compared to this tanim, and they knew that's exactly like Pharaoh and his servants. Umaza ota mitpaer b'mate shocha shel tanin. So really, what are you being so, like the astrologers are saying to Pharaoh or to Aaron? What are you being so what are you building yourself up with your staff that it should be like this animal? That's why it was shown to them really that Aaron's is masculine. It's much stronger than Pharaoh's. Shetaninim shalehem chalushim kinekevot. That they were weak like girls, weak like women. Therefore, we're going right now with the Pshat of Rashi and the way the text seems to explain it, that the staff of Aaron swallowed up their staffs. This could not have been done. Moses' staff could not. It was a nachash. He used this already as a nachash in front of the Jewish people. He didn't want to show the great destructive power that this tanim could have had. Instead, he used the nachash. Because it's the same staff that he's using both for the Jews and for the Egyptians, and therefore it could not be such a dangerous, destructive weapon. That's why it only turned into a snake. On the other hand, the staff of Aaron, which didn't go against the Jewish people, it only went against the enemy, Paro. It was used and turned into this tanin, which we don't know what it is, whether it's a fish, crocodile, or a more fiery, venomous serpent. And it was all there by Aaron in order to get rid of the power of Paro, who's compared to tanim, as we said. So the Kliyakar continues. Now he's going to give a proof for everything he said. When the actual plague came to the river, I want to show you the difference over here. Where are we going to find it? Okay, I want you to look at some of these verses. You go, and it's number 15 and 16 and 17. So in Exodus chapter 7, we're going to read really, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, all these verses. So let's see them, how it works. Let's go through in English first. Go to Pharaoh in the morning, right? Let's say like this. The Lord said to Moses, ... Go to Pharaoh. So he's talking to Moses. It doesn't say Aaron. Behold, he's going forth to the water. Now why? He urinated only in the morning, right? He held it in 24 hours a day. if anybody saw him urinate, they would say, you're a human being. You put on your right leg in your pants, and you put on your right sock, and you put on your right shoe, just like I do. No, he doesn't urinate, at least in public, like, people would know. Right? So he hid it, and he went down when nobody was looking, and that's when Moses was going to come and find him. You're going to stand. God tells Moses, you're going to go to Pharaoh, you're going to stand opposite him on the bank of the Nile, and the staff that was turned into a serpent you shall take in your hand. So it's the staff that we saw in chapter 4 where they turned into a serpent. That's the staff that Moses holds in his hand. Okay, then, with this you will know that I am the Lord. This is still being spoken to Moses only. With this you will know that I am the Lord, meaning Moses is now speaking to Pharaoh. Behold, I will smite with the staff that is in my hand upon the water that is in the Nile, and it will turn to blood. And the fish are going to die. Now think about this. We know we have a medrash that Moses did not do the smiting. The verse says, Moses says, I'm going to do it. So that means it's Moses' rod, but let's say he didn't actually do it. Aaron used his rod. The only way I can make sense of it, I have to tell you. Okay, we can read the Rashis on your own when it comes to that, but now go to verse 19. Chapter 7, verse 19. Then God says to Moses, this is what you're going to say to Aaron. Say to Aaron, take your staff. Now this is already after, think about it a second, Moses is telling him, I'm going to take my staff, we're going to make the Nile turn into blood, and all the fish are going to die. In 19, Aaron's going to take his staff over the waters. It doesn't say the river. There's no the river here. But over all the waters of Egypt, over the rivers, over their canals, over their ponds, over all their bodies of water, they're going to become blood, and everything's going to become blood. But there's no mention of dead fish. Again, I mentioned earlier, there's two staffs. Aaron has a staff, Moses has a staff. Let's see what the Kliyakar has to say about this. When it came to the plague on the river that turned into blood, in verse 15, we clearly saw God telling Moses that the staff that you had in your hand that had turned into a snake, that you're going to use to turn into blood. Zeh the Mate Moshe. This is clearly the staff of Moses, and it's written about in verse 17. Behold, Moses says, Anochi mache b'mata asher biyadi. I'm going to make this plague with the staff that's in my hand on the water, which is where? Biyo'ah, right in the river. Nahafku l'dam. Aval lo haya koch gadol kol kach ad shehashchit kol meimei Mitzrayim v'norosam v'agmehem. But this, remember, Moses was not as, it turned into a nachash. It wasn't as powerful as a tanin, which Aaron's staff turned into. So what is he saying here? That Aaron's was more powerful because it was able to turn all the waters all over Egypt, whereas Moses only did the river. Afterwards, in verse 19, say to Aaron, take your staff, stretch out your hand on all the waters, on the waters of the different rivers and canals. So what do we hear from it? Shema mina shekach mate Aaron gadol min koach mate Moshe. This is what you understand, that the staff of Aaron was more powerful than Moses. Shrei mate shel Aaron pa'al gam b'naharotam v'agmehem b'kol mikvei mehem. It affected every single body of water in Egypt. Moses did not. Zemate shel Aaron nimshulatani. Remember, it was Aaron's staff that turned into this more powerful animal. Shechamat taninim gadol min chamas stam nachash. We have to remind ourselves that whatever the tanim are, they're more powerful than a regular snake. Umata Moshe lo nitain chema gedola. Whereas we're reminded that Moses' staff, as our leader, his staff did not exhibit as much wrath or as much pain. Bavur shahaya roeg gam es Yisrael, because he was our leader. The leader has to be well-tempered. He can't be walking around like a raging maniac. Even when the leader is angry, which maybe there's time to be, we can discuss that, it can't be real anger, right? It has to be tempered. This is a remez yakar. Everything we spoke about up until now is very dear and understood as a hint. Okay, now, ready for this. The Kliyakar originally mentioned there is an opinion in Rashi, right, during the first day of creation, or say the fifth day of creation, the first week of creation, that the word tanim is talking about, really, we're talking about fish, right? That's how we described it then. So what he's going to do is, and this is fascinating, I think every chacham should really try to understand both sides of every argument. We discussed it as either being a nachash or a crocodile, or somewhere in between, a more venomous type of serpent. Now we're going to go back to the possibility that it was a dog all along, and now we'll see the whole narrative using a dog and not necessarily a stronger snake. We already know snake is being used, but the word tanim could mean fish. So now if we're going to translate and understand the word tanim as a fish, I'll tell you what we're able to say. When it came to the miracles or the signs that needed to be reduced in front of the Jewish people, it was for sure nachash. The Torah tells us to teach us what? When Israel began as a nation, we left Egypt in the middle of the day, not in the middle of the night hiding. We stood with our backs tall and straight, like a makel, like a staff. And even when we came into the land of Israel with Joshua, we came in and our prayer is that when we return, we also don't return with our tail between our legs. So Jews in America, now's the time. Come home standing tall. So, but what's the makel? It's something very tall. But what does it become? It became something slithering on its stomach, low to the ground, with no height whatsoever. But what happens? The snake goes down to the ground. Just crawling on the dirt. But when Moses is told to grab it by its tail, what is the tail? It's the dead end. It's the end. This is what I have been referring to all along by those people in the 12-step programs called hitting rock bottom. What's the goal of God bringing you down so far down to rock bottom? Only to bring you up. Listen to what he says. What's the goal of bringing you down? To bring you back to a strong, straight position. And that's exactly what happened. You know when Pharaoh really made it hard for the Jews in the slavery process? At the very end. It was like a progression, right? The slavery got worse and worse and worse. And at the end it was the worst. That we're talking about the tail. You become like the tail. It's, I'm not sure the language here, but basically like all smoke and fire, and it's like descending into the pits of hell, and at the very end there's only one way to go, and that is up. That all happened in front of the Jewish people with using what? The nachash. But comes Pharaoh, it doesn't work like that. It had to be this creature called a tanin, which we're now going to describe as fish. Lahoros, just like Sichal Hashem Atzato B'Rishona. This is the most amazing thing. Hashem is perfect in all his ways. When people have bad intent, God forbid, if they don't do tshuva, that bad intent comes, it boomerangs, right? What did Pharaoh want to do to the Jewish people? He says, pen year bet, lest they increase. What do we know about fish? Fish is, I don't know exactly, I've never seen a fish give birth, but I heard there's lots and lots of eggs, right? Tons of eggs, right? They have kosher caviar. I've seen that. But anyway, just imagine, This is what God does. He upsets, He causes a backfire on the fool that tries to ruin God's plan, who tries to ruin the Jewish people. This is what's going to happen to them. He wanted us to be a dry stick, to not have any more children, to finish off, like Hitler Yamak Shemo, like all of our enemies. They wanted us not to propagate, not to have so many children. This is why, didn't Pharaoh himself say, Pen Yirbeh, lest they increase? Nefach al Hadavar. But God did the opposite. We had so many people come out of Egypt, and we could have had even more. We could have had 4 times, or 4/5, right? 1/5 left Egypt. We could have had so many more. Shemata hayavesh nasedag. But God caused this dry stick to become, fish are usually moist, but we're talking about the ability to propagate. Kamosh Ne'emar, as it says in Genesis 48 verse 16, V'yigdu l'ro b'kerev haaretz. Right, this is the blessing that Yaakov gave Yosef. May they multiply abundantly like fish in the midst of the land. So too God was uprooting the intent of Pharaoh by showing him, right? This is what it's going to be like. You want the Jews to be like a dry stick, I'm going to make them propagate like fish. Now, according to the way the Gemara describes, according to the Medrash, that the matot ate the other matot, that the staff of Aaron ate the staffs of the astrologers, but according to the Kliyakar, and there is an opinion, by the way, like this, he didn't make it up, that it remained fish, that the fish ate up the other fish. It's just that the fish were represented by the mata. And why? To hint that the Jewish people will always remain fruitful and plenty forever. As it says, and he uses the verse, the Yivla Mate Aaron, that says Aaron's mata ate up the matot, meaning the tanin that was originally a mata. It was no longer a mata, it was now a tanin, which is a fish, and it remained a fish forever. So the Kliyakar finishes off the last paragraph, right? The plague over the river, Sheyesh bo dagim. What is in the river? Fish. And they all died in the Nile. Al yedei mata shamosha dafka. It was specifically with the staff of Moses. Why? Because originally it was a nachash. His staff was a nachash. So that could be used to kill the fish. Avamata Aaron. But if Aaron's staff, Shai Metchila Dag, if we're saying that his staff, when he did his trick in front of them, the astrologers, was a fish, how are you going to use a fish to kill other fish? This is the reason why we don't have Arabs in the Israeli army. We don't want, or we don't feel it's necessary, maybe we don't trust them, for whatever reason, let's just say we don't think that they're going to go ahead and kill their own brothers. There's something unusual about that, right? So we won't allow them on a mandatory basis to be in the army. Okay, so since this staff was originally a fish, now that we're not really dealing with the theatrics in front of Pharaoh, we're actually talking about just the staff killing the fish. After the fact that it was a fish, it's going to kill other fish. That's specifically why the verse tells us, now take the staff of Aaron. Before it was the staff of Moshe, but now it's going to be the staff of Aaron. That's why it says, the fish all died, only in the river. We're talking about Moses' staff was used for the river. It was Aaron's staff was used for all the other. So it was the fish, meaning, am I getting confused here? Sorry, one second. Right. That means Aaron's staff was used for all the other water supplies, and no fish were killed because Aaron's staff was tanin. Tanin represents fish, and you couldn't use it like that. And the chachamir b'yar, that means we're being more strict by the river where the fish did die. And the reason why, because the river itself was their god. Yes, I'm sure that Pharaoh thought himself as a god or a son of a god, but they worshipped the Nile. They actually worshipped the Nile, and therefore there was a strictness. They had to kill the fish. The fish needed to die in the Nile. They didn't need to die in all the swamps and canals, because what we wanted to show them, what God wanted to show them, is your God ain't nothing. I know it's a double negative, but trust me, it's worthless, right? That you would expect your God to be able to at least save. How do you live without fish, right? Well, guess what? You're going to have a chance to find out. Your God cannot even save the fish that's in it. That's why the judgment was made on their gods. That its God, the God or the deity, whatever, the Nile River couldn't even save its own fish. They did not consider the canals and the swamps as gods. Therefore, those fish were not killed. This is a very important lesson we just take it for all of Jewish history, right? Anything that has to do with Judaism, it's not just about living in a intimate relationship with God, which is the most important thing, but it's also about knowing what's not right? There's a lot of confusion in this world, okay? And there's a lot of fake news out there. We need clarity. And when you learn a sugya, when you learn in a Gemara, when you want to come to even philosophers, you want to get to the truth, sometimes you have to go and find out what's not true first. Sometimes you have to go through and prove what isn't true. And then you'll come to understand what is true easier. Especially when you come to think about God, because God is unfathomable. You cannot even explain it. So you have to explain what God isn't. And to show what God isn't, and to understand what God isn't. That is the easiest way to come, to understand God. Okay? So a lot of people who've been involved in other religions, have been through other religions, been through the fake series of other religions, and they finally come to Judaism and they stick with it. To know what is not true, right? Whether it's atheism, whether it's science, right? As a religion, leftist, progressive, all kinds of fake news out there. Sometimes you have to go through and clearly understand what isn't true in order to truly come to what is. And that is a very important lesson. And I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov, and a great Tu B'Shvat. And welcome home to Torah. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I want to ask you all to, whoever enjoyed this, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification bell.
Yiboneh